Welcome to New Horizon channel. In the heart of the bustling YouTube universe, our channel stands as a beacon of current affairs, serving you piping hot updates on the day's most pressing matters. Let's delve right into the heart of today's story. On a fateful day, October 22nd, an unintended discharge from an Israeli Defense Forces (IDF) tank found its mark on an Egyptian military installation. An incident that sent ripples across the military world, triggering an investigation within ranks. The IDF, steeped in remorse, hastened to articulate their deep regret for the mishap. The echo of the accidental blow was felt by the Egyptian border guard, with minor injuries caused by the shrapnel. The details, however, remain shrouded in ambiguity as Egyptian officials have chosen to remain reticent. The Israeli side, in an act of diplomacy, promptly extended an apology for the incident and initiated an internal investigation. In Egypt, the media voices were quick to reassure that this inadvertent act by the IDF would not disrupt the steady flow of humanitarian aid to Gaza via the Rafah border crossing. The military installation, nestled in the Kem Salem area near the Israeli-Egyptian border, south of the Gaza Strip, bore the brunt of this accident amidst the escalating tensions between the IDF and Hamas in Gaza. Egypt, prior to this, had been spearheading efforts to rejuvenate the Rafah border crossing to ease the movement of humanitarian aid to Gaza. This was announced by none other than U.S. President Joe Biden, who confirmed an agreement between the U.S., Egypt, and Israel to allow 20 aid trucks to traverse the border crossing in the initial. Despite this step forward, the delivery of assistance to Gaza may face delays due to necessary reparations and enhancements around the Rafah border crossing. President Biden noted that the United Nations would oversee the distribution of the humanitarian aid within Gaza, with the subsequent deliveries hinging on the smooth execution of the first aid transport. In a stern reminder, President Biden cautioned that any attempt by Hamas to commandeer the humanitarian aid would result in the discontinuation of further deliveries. The U.S., in its call for humanitarian outreach, urged Egypt to permit foreign passport holders, predominantly those with U.S. passports, to exit Gaza via the Rafah border crossing. In a final note, the U.S. government echoed its commitment to regular humanitarian aid delivery to Gaza via Rafah, with a tripartite coordination between the U.S., Egypt, and international aid organizations under the watchful eye of the United Nations, ensuring the safe conveyance of it. In the heart of a relentless conflict and a raging humanitarian crisis, on the 21st of October, a beacon of hope illuminated the desolate landscapes of Gaza. An aid convoy, a symbolic caravan of 20 vehicles dispatched by the Red Crescent, Egypt's humanitarian organization, bravely treaded the unstable soil of this embattled territory. Yet, the international community and surrounding region are pleading with Israel, their voices echoing through the diplomatic corridors, urging the opening of the gates to allow vital aid supplies into Gaza. This call for action comes in response to the increasingly dire humanitarian situation faced by the people of Palestine within Gaza's borders. Nestled within the volatile Gaza Strip is Rafah, the lone passage free from Israel's grasp. However, the path has been scarred by the ceaseless Israeli airstrikes, leaving a trail of destruction that has impeded the progress of aid vehicles. The United Nations proposes a grim estimate. To satisfy the desperate needs of Gaza's populace, a procession of 100 trucks must brave the hazardous path each day. Simultaneously, Israel escalates its aerial assault, their preparations for a ground offensive into Gaza resonating rumblings of war. A bleak report from Gaza's medical sources on October 22nd shed light on the devastating aftermath of the airstrikes. The chilling count of 266 Palestinian lives lost, over 30 homes reduced to rubble, all within the span of a single day. Fear has gripped the Palestinian residents of Gaza, who have been cautioned by the Israeli military to abandon the northern part of Gaza for the south, in a bid to minimize casualties. Leaflets bearing these warnings flutter in the wind, a grim reminder of the imminent danger. Yet, for many, the journey south carries with it a perilous uncertainty. Against this backdrop of turmoil, Hamas leaders led by Ismail Haniyeh made a television appearance. The shock of the attacks reflected in their eyes as they watched the news unfold on a large screen. They knelt in gratitude for what they saw as the success of their campaign, seemingly oblivious to the suffering of the Gaza civilians, the casualties of the airstrikes, and the displacement of tens of thousands. And comfortable, these Hamas leaders reside a significant 2,000 kilometers distance away, enjoying the hospitality of Qatar. And they aren't alone. Merely minutes away from their opulent hotels and residences lies the Udeid Air Base, the nerve center of the U.S. military command. The U.S.'s bond with Qatar has woven a tight-knit alliance, so much so that the White House labeled this small emirate as a significant non-NATO ally last year. The U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, wasted no time in including Qatar in his Middle East tour, where alongside Qatar's Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani, he held a joint press conference. And so, the tale of the Gaza conflict unfolds, a story of resilience, conflict and alliances etched in the annals of history. Picture it, October 13th, a day of intrigue and political ambiguity. The question on everyone's lips is whether or not U.S. Secretary of State Mr. Blinken has leaned on Qatar to shutter the Hamas political office in Doha. Alas, the answer remains shrouded in mystery as Blinken skirts around the issue, only hinting that business as usual with Hamas can no longer play out. Enter the Qatari Prime Minister, a staunch defender of Hamas's foothold in his nation. His argument? Their presence is merely a conduit for peace talks, not a catalyst for chaos, a function that's been unchanged since their arrival. Thomas June, a sage in Middle Eastern politics from the esteemed University of Ottawa, Canada, offers an intriguing perspective. What might appear as contradictions, he says, are simply pieces of a larger puzzle. At the core, Qatar's unorthodox foreign policy strategy of open dialogue with all players, be they Taliban, Hamas, or Libyan rebels. The logic is simple for a nation as small and vulnerable as Qatar, be the most valuable connection in the global networking game. And they play it well. Their instrumental role in managing complex networks isn't lost on the U.S. In fact, it's a source of both admiration and frustration. Indeed, the luxurious hotels in Doha, frequented by high-level Taliban representatives and doubling up as platforms for peace talks between Russia and Ukraine, aren't mere locations. They're symbols of Qatar's central role in international negotiations, including those involving the Pentagon's operations in Afghanistan. Hamas's presence in Qatar, however, throws a wrench into the U.S.'s sentiments. On one hand, Qatar is invaluable when the U.S. needs to liaise with Hamas or the Taliban. On the other, there's a tinge of disappointment at Qatar hosting political leaders from Hamas. Qatar's support for the Palestinian cause is heartfelt, leading them to often play host to Hamas's political activities. But as violence escalates in southern Israel, experts warn that Qatar's patience may be wearing thin. The reality is, unless one harbors the belief that Israel can completely quash Hamas, a dubious notion at best, dialogue with Hamas is inevitable. And these dialogues need a mediator, an initiator, a coordinator, and an overseer. Like it or not, Qatar may find itself ensnared in this challenging role. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.